In Venezuela, a new flight carrying 198 repatriated migrants arrived in the country as part of the Back to the Homeland plan. Nations worldwide are reacting to the newly announced set of tariffs imposed by U.S. President Donald Trump on Wednesday. In Myanmar, the death toll from the earthquake rose to 3,085, while authorities continue the search and rescue effort. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Ana Marrero from the teleSUR headquarters in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. On Thursday, 198 Venezuelan migrants arrived in the country as part of the Back to the Homeland plan. With this flight, there are now more than 1,800 Venezuelan nationals that have returned in 2025 through the humanitarian plan that provides dignity and security. This is the second flight of migrants arriving in the country on Thursday, coming from Texas, and had an stopover in Honduras. 12 women and 186 men arrived on this flight. It is known that the migrants will go through a process of criminal and health checks and then be taken home directly. Let us remember that these migrants who have returned to the country in the last few weeks have been victims of the fascist plan of the U.S. government, which is developing a plan of persecution and kidnapping against Venezuelans who are on U.S. soil.
Now we are receiving a second flight from our airline Conviasa. This flight comes from Honduras, where a plane from the United States landed and 198 repatriated persons are on board, of which 12 are women and the rest are men, according to the evaluation made by the Venezuelan authorities in terms of police records and background information. There is not a single one who has an international request if there are any of this group of repatriated persons who are arriving today with police records. Once they arrive here, as has been indicated on all occasions, they will be thoroughly checked by our authorities, and those who have a debt with the justice system will undoubtedly go to another session, which is the follow-up of the debt they have associated.
In turn, the Minister of Transportation emphasized that the Administrative Service of Identification, Migration and Foreigners of Venezuela was in charge of verifying that all those included in the list were Venezuelans, pointing out that none of those repatriated belongs to the extinct Tren del Agua.
However, we must also clarify, according to the analysis, because, before boarding all these returnees, there were personnel from the Administrative Service of Identification, Migration and Foreigners, who checked one by one, with their fingerprint, to verify first of all that they are Venezuelan citizens, and none, according to the list of returnees that we are about to receive, none belong to the notorious Tren del Agua. Today, more than ever, we are committed to the return of our Venezuelan men and women to the country, and here there is a group of institutions that respond to a single guideline, to receive our nationals, to give them the humane treatment, to treat them as citizens of this great homeland, which will allow them, once they arrive here in their territory, to be able to rejoin the community, the country, the public activities and the private activities of each one of them.
Also early in the day, a flight carrying repatriated migrants arrived at the Simon Bolivar International Airport in Maiquetía in the state of La Guaira through the Back to the Homeland government plan. The flight arriving from Mexico was received by the Venezuelan Minister of Interior Relations, Justice and Peace, Diosdado Cabello, who welcomed 313 people, among them 151 children, 102 women, and 60 men. In this context, Cabello emphasized that the different security and child protection agencies, as well as the medical agencies, were present at the airport. Likewise, the Minister of Interior, Justice and Peace of Venezuela, Diosdado Cabello, highlighted that with this flight, 1,610 Venezuelans have already returned to the country under the Back to the Homeland plan.
It is a flight that, with this one, 1,610 Venezuelans have been transferred from the United States, because those who are in Mexico are not really in Mexico. They returned from the United States to Mexico, and we have been doing that work, and we hope to see the regularization. As of last week, they have already started to regularize. There is a flight today from Mexico. Then there is a flight where we are going to take the comrades in Honduras directly from the United States to Honduras, and tomorrow morning, as the President announced, there will be a direct flight from the United States. The return to the homeland plan, a policy of the Venezuelan state so that the Venezuelan citizens, wherever they are, can return to our country with the guarantees of a state that takes care of them, with the guarantees of a state that reviews each case individually and in a particular way.
In this context, Diosdado Cabello denounced El Salvador to return demanded El Salvador to return the kidnapped Venezuelans.
We continue to demand, from here in Venezuela, raising our voices, demanding that the government of El Salvador, which has kidnapped, the government of El Salvador, of Mr. Nayib Bukele, that has kidnapped the Venezuelans, return us our children, the children that you and the government of the United States had kidnapped there, in an arbitrary manner. They have not committed any crime in El Salvador. Not a single crime. They cannot be judged in El Salvador because they have not committed any crime in El Salvador, and, if they committed a crime in the United States, it is up to the government of the United States to judge them, to submit them to the justice of the United States. It is the arbitrariness of those who assume themselves to be the owners of the world.
The Venezuelan-Azerbaijan Friendship Group was established in Baku on Thursday within the framework of a mutual understanding and strengthening of parliamentary relations. The group, chaired by the second Vice President of the Venezuelan Parliament, America Perez, seeks to promote political, economic, and cultural exchange between both nations. It is also intended as a platform to define a common vision in the development and international cooperation. Both parties agree on new meetings to joint measures and initiatives, and reiterate their interest in expanding their bilateral and multilateral relations. Let's take a very short break, but remember you can join us on our TikTok account as teleSUR English, where you'll be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Stay tuned for more news. Welcome back to From the South. In Chile, workers' union organizations called for a national strike to demand better working conditions and quality of life for disadvantaged sectors. The Workers' Unite Center informed that the date of mobilizations will take place in all the regions with the participation of different social sectors, including at least 16 organizations affiliated to the Federation. Protests are carried out as a pressure measure to build a better development of the country and not as an economic indicator. The call also demands the negotiation of a 40-hour work week in the public sector. Teachers' unions in Panama are holding a 48-hour national strike against the approval of Law 462 of the Social Security Fund. The strike called by the Teachers' Action Front rejects the government's promotive initiative, which establishes the privatization of the public entity that serves retirees and thieves of its resources to be handed over to the banks, in addition to raising the retirement age and thus delaying the access to pensions. For the duration of the strike, parents were asked not to send their children to school. The action is also aimed at denouncing the relocation of shelters to other communities in the Rio Indio area, where the government wants to build a reservoir allegedly for the benefit of the Panama Canal, but without the conscience of the indigenous peoples and peasants. The president of Argentina, Javier Milei, will face a class action lawsuit in the United States for his involvement in the Libra crypto scam. The former federal prosecutor for the Department of Justice, Timothy Traynor, will file the class action lawsuit in federal court in New York. The president is accused of being a necessary participant in the fraud involving the Libra cryptocurrency, which was prompted on February 14th. The complainant alleges that was instrumental in manipulating the market, causing an estimate of $250 million in losses to investors. The former prosecutor argues that the president's influence and his public announcement were crucial. The lawsuit not only seeks justice for fraud and market manipulation, but could also invoke the REACH Act, which target organized crime activities. Following U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff measures, stock markets around the world plummeted. In Europe, the Milan Stock Exchange fell by 2.84%, followed by the Frankfurt Stock Exchange with more than 2.77 percentage points, while Paris Stock Exchange fell by as much as 2.14%. Meanwhile, in Asia, the Tokyo Stock Exchange fell by as much as 2.77%, while in Hong Kong it lost 1.69% of its value. Experts estimate a possible increase of at least 3% in global inflation, in addition to fuel and uncertainty in the international economy. Trump's decide to impose tariffs of at least 10% of all countries and a higher percentage on partner countries, declaring a trade war on the world with the highest import taxes in a century. On Thursday, during her morning press conference, the Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum welcomed the exclusion of her country from the new set of U.S. tariffs imposed on several countries. Sheinbaum highlighted the good relationship her nation has built with the government of the United States, which she stressed is based on respect for their people and their national sovereignty, which she said allowed for Mexico to avoid additional tariffs. It is worth recalling that President Trump previously introduced a 25% tax on Mexico's exports, but explained that Mexico will not have to pay the tariff on goods included in the U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement. In this regard, Mexican Secretary of Commerce Marcelo Ebrard added the country will ask for better conditions for aluminum and steel.
En el caso de México,
in the case of Mexico,
pues, no hay aranceles
there are no additional tariffs,
tampoco a Canadá.
nor for Canada, although in the case of Canada they make some specifications.
Y eso es bueno,
And that is good for the country, for Mexico.
aunque algunos no quieran.
Although some do not want to recognize it. This is due to the good relationship that we have built between the government of Mexico and the government of the United States. which is based on respect.
que se
The
basa
Mexican president assured that the dialogues on economic issues with the U.S. continue and highlight the growth of the relationship between the Secretary Marcelo Ebrard with his U.S. counterpart.
la industria automotriz.
Remember that our automotive industry is very integrated,
Estamos todavía
and we are still in dialogue, in talks with the government of the United States.
Economía, Marcelo Ebrard,
The Secretary of Economy, Marcelo Ebrard, has built a very good relationship with the Secretary of Commerce, which is the result of the calls that we have had with President Trump.
con el presidente Trump.
We continue working, dialoguing. In fact, it is very likely that the Secretary of Economy, Marcelo Ebrard, will be in Washington next week.
Ebrard estará en Washington.
So we continue working on those two issues, the automotive industry, steel and aluminum.
Industria automotriz, acero y aluminio.
And on Thursday, also in response to the U.S. economic measure, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney announced 25% tariff on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with the U.S.-Mexico-Canada Agreement on Free Trade.
And today I'm announcing that the Government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach, with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement. And on the non-Canadian content of CUSMA-compliant vehicles from the United States as well. Our tariffs, though, unlike the U.S. tariffs, will not affect auto parts because we know the benefits of our integrated production system. And they will also not affect vehicle content from Mexico, who is respecting the CUSMA agreement.
Let's take our last break, but before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay updated on our recent events. We found a short breakdown going. Welcome back. The Lebanese Ministry of Health condemned Israeli attacks against a health center affiliated to the civil defense in the city of Nakura in the south of the country. The Lebanese civil defense denounced the attack against its territory and affirms that as a consequence of the Israeli outlaws in the city of Nakura, they destroyed a recently installed health center and damaged 2 ambulances and a fire engine. Through a communique, the health authorities add that these aggressions are part of a series of violations and daily attacks of the Israeli war against Lebanon. The General Directorate of Civil Defense, together with the Islamic Health Authority, denounced that Israel has not legal for or ethnical trial to advance with its Zionist and genocidal plans. The Syrian de facto government denounced that Israel is carrying out an escalation of aggressions against 5 areas to destabilize the country and harm the population. Through a communique, the Syrian Foreign Ministry informed that the Israeli attack caused almost total destruction of the military airport in the city of Hama. Furthermore, it qualified these crimes as unjustified and accused the Zionist forces of trying to prolong the violence and perpetrate a policy of impunity. Syria also urged the international community to pressure Tel Aviv to put an end to the aggressions due to the constant bombings that left thousands of dead and wounded. On Wednesday, a family of 12 members was wiped out in a massacre carried out by the Israeli genocidal occupiers in the Gaza Strip after the unilaterally break in the ceasefire. According to the civil defense report, the family had gone to visit close relatives, and within minutes of returning to their rent house, the occupied forces shot them. Witnesses confirmed that the Houda family had survived the genocidal operation together for like a year. Like residents of Rafah, they suffered numerous displacements until this Wednesday when the occupation army killed them all. After more than 36 airstrikes on the civilian the U.S. carrier Truman. Spokesman of the Yemeni armed forces, Yazidi, reported that the allies of the Israeli genocidal operation attacked residential areas in the provinces of Sana'a and Zara without specifying and confirming that there were numerous deaths and injuries. Moving on, in Myanmar, the death toll from the earthquake rose to 3,085, while authorities continue search and rescue efforts. According to the authorities, there are 4,715 injured and 341 missing people. Also, 49 planes have arrived in Myanmar with international aid, carrying 1,815 rescue teams and more than 714 tons of material distributed in emergency areas. The junta also declared a 3-week truce in the actual conflict, a day after rejecting a ceasefire proposal by rebel groups in order to facilitate relief efforts, following requests from the numerous humanitarian organizations and nations to ensure the protection of civilians and affected aid workers. Also in Myanmar, Russian rescuers deployed by the Ministry of Emergency Situation are providing medical help to earthquake victims. The brigade has set up a mobile hospital where more than 65 injured people have sought help in the last 3 days, also tackling the outbreak of chronic diseases aimed at the rubble left by the seismic. We have come to the end of this brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on our socials. We're on Facebook, on X, and on Instagram as well. For Telesur English, and from the south of Marmarrero, thank you for watching.